Welcome back to Cookin' Vegan with Miss Krystle. Today, I'm gonna show you 2 recipes for some of the best vegan cheese you have ever tasted. The first is made from cashews and the second is made from potatoes. These recipes are surprisingly fast to make and they really don't take a lot of time. Be sure to subscribe and turn on those bell notifications so you don't miss any new vegan recipes, music videos, live performances, and anything else from your new favorite redhead. Stick around till later in the video because I'm gonna have my music producer, that Orko, pop in. He's gonna give us his thoughts on the cheese as a non-vegan. All right, so let's set the scene here. We got our trusty blender. You need a blender for both of these recipes as well as a stovetop because we're gonna be warming up the cheese when we get done. We're also gonna have some fresh lemon juice, which I have pre-squeezed and gotten ready for this video. And this is, of course, the cashew-based vegan cheese. So you need your cashews. Do raw as well as organic whenever possible, but at a minimum, raw. Make sure you have these babies soak for at least 2 hours in water. You can do overnight if you want to, but I find that 2 hours is kind of the perfect time for me. Next, you're gonna need 3 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice, which I have already pre-prepped, 3 cups of filtered water, a half a cup of Nutritional yeast, a half a teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of salt, and a half a teaspoon of turmeric. Okay, so now we're gonna add all our ingredients to the blender. Moving on to the actual cashews. And our handy dandy nutritional yeast. Our mixture of spices and salt. And as my secret ingredient, I like to add a little bit of jalapeno, which will give it a little added spice and kick, which is really nice. Now let's get to blending. So you want to make sure to let this baby run for a few minutes because you want that texture to be very, very smooth. And you're going to notice as you're kind of taste testing it that it's very watery. That's how it's supposed to be. It's going to thicken up once we add the heat on top of the stove. And we're going to kind of do that as we go. Your method to madness, you're going to cook or heat what you need for that particular day. The rest will get stored in the fridge and then you'll just continue to heat it as you go. You'll see what I'm talking about. So now we're gonna take this over to the stovetop, have it set to medium heat, and then as far as which you use to stir it up, it can be a spoon or a whisk, it doesn't really matter. And for the final reveal, I wanna show you how many dishes this cheese works for, starting with some tortilla chips. And of course, you can do some mac and cheese, boil up some pasta. How about a baked potato with some steamed vegetables? And for some comfort food, some fries. And now we pour the cheese. Oh, yes! That looks so good. Guys, I'm telling you, it smells amazing. Last but not least. Ooh. And as promised, I have my music producer with me today, that Orko, who's currently working with me on my upcoming album. So what I want to do is kind of talk about why this cheese has become like a staple in his diet plan as well as mine, and just kind of, you're not a vegan, but you're a vegetarian.
Right, so I've been vegetarian for a little over a year and a half now. mostly from your influence has really helped. But the hardest thing for me to make that transition from being a vegetarian to going to vegan or just even more hardcore is I love cheese.
Loves cheese, like loves cheese.
I love cheese and it's hard. So like we have been eating this for a while. We've been switching back and forth between this recipe and the other one.
Which we're gonna cover next.
It's amazing because for something like this specifically, like so broccoli, cheese, potatoes or whatever, I would get the Velveeta sauce and I would just squirt it all over it and I would have a stomach ache like crazy. This has no stomach ache to it.
And I think that's something important to note, right? So I know so many people who have the same kind of difficulty getting rid of dairy. It's just a huge thing. They love cheese, they love milk, that kind of thing. But they still have some kind of lactose intolerant. They still get sick when they eat cheese. And so that's why this has been so amazing because you just douse it on everything.
No, like literally, this is just some of the things and it's so easy to make that, she showed me how to make it. I'm making it like all the time because I really can't get enough of it. So I'm a big fan of this cashew cheese right now. It is most winning.
Yeah, and what's funny is that besides heating it up, which may or may not be considered cooking, besides the heating process that you saw at the very end, this is actually a raw vegan cheese, right? So everything we put into this was raw, which is kind of amazing.
So good.
Yeah, it's really great, guys. And
it's totally addictive. It's totally addictive. Like I'm like no exaggeration. I am pouring it on all of my food.
Yeah, and that's why it was important that we wanted to share this with you guys, especially those who are kind of struggling, want to get away from dairy, but aren't really, vegan or just want to have an option. And so what I will say too is that you saw, obviously, when I was pouring it, it's very creamy. It's very, very filling. And the difference between this cashew and then the potato-based one that we're going to cover here in a second is this one's a little bit closer to actually like a cheese texture. It's a lot more fatty because of the cashews.
Yeah. The cashew is not way more creamier, but it's creamier than the other one that it's gonna be. Yeah. But the other one, since the other one is potato based, it's better to put the cashew on the potato and then on the potato. So it's not just potato on potato on potato, but to tell you the truth, I put it on that too. So,
so thank you, that Orko.
So good. I'm probably gonna eat all of that.
All right, you guys, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna clean up, clear off, get ready for the next recipe. Be sure to go pick up one of my vegan boy or vegan girl shirts where you can proudly display the fact that you eat vegan cheese. Links down in the description below to get your shirt today. We're gonna jump now into our second vegan cheese recipe, and this one is a little bit different because the main ingredients are potatoes. So going down the line, we're gonna want 2 to 3 potatoes as well as 1 large carrot. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. We're gonna wanna do 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. I like the organic stuff. We're gonna do 2 teaspoons of salt, and then 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, and 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. So before we add all the ingredients into the blender, let's talk a little bit about the prep for your potatoes and your carrots. You want to make sure you cube these babies up and then throw them into boiling water for around 12 minutes. You can obviously kind of test it with a fork and just kind of see the softness as you go. Once it's done though, here's a really important tip. You want to make sure that you give it a little while to cool. And when I say a little while, I'm talking around 15 minutes. The reason we let it cool for around 15 minutes is because if you add it straight into the blender and it's piping hot, you actually might cause some damage to the blades. We don't want to break your blender, so give it that 15 minutes to cool down. Now, just like what I did on the last recipe, I add a little bit of jalapeno to my mixture as it's boiling. Now, I'm gonna use filtered water today as I add everything into the blender, but what I'll sometimes do is actually use the water that was boiled because it'll have that extra flavor, that extra little kick from the jalapeno, and I'll add that into the mixture. So now, let's add everything to our blender. Let's get into the lemon juice. And our salt and beautiful spices. right, now we're gonna give her a good whirl. So once you've gotten the consistency to a nice smooth texture, you're ready to go, basically. And that's kind of the nice thing about this recipe when compared to the last one, is that you don't need to do any additional steps from here. It is good to serve just like this. And in front of us right here, we have our standard tortilla chips and some nicely steamed vegetables. So let's get to pouring. This baby is definitely thick. Oh. Let's make some nacho. Ooh. I think I added a little much. I'm not gonna lie. Someone's getting a lot of cheese later. My bad. It's still delicious. So that was my 2 favorite vegan cheese recipes. Be sure you guys not only try them, but let me know what you think. If there's one that you kind of like a little more than the other, be sure to leave your comments down below. And don't forget to come say hi on social media. I'm definitely the most active on Instagram, and it's always amazing to meet you guys. Like I noted earlier in the video when talking with that Orko, we are just finishing my new album. So excited to get that out. So hopefully this will tie you over in the meantime. Be sure to follow me on Spotify, just search Miss Krystle. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, turn on those bell notifications. We will have more recipes for you to come, music videos, live performances, and everything in between. I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm Miss Krystle. Bye.